distance learners, you guys have a test tomorrow. What you need to do for me today, everybody, but distance learners, you need to send me a picture, if you didn't send me yesterday's, of 1 through 10. Make sure you do that. You can either do it through email or remind. Today we're going to hit the odds and a couple others on out to the end. So number 11, what I want you to do to get your points, you just have to write down what I write. I want you to draw the path of the water balloon, okay? And then I want you to circle. I'm gonna highlight, but everything I highlight, you just circle. You're gonna go to this formula right here and circle it. And it says, when will the ball reach its highest point? So we're gonna go put a dot right at the top, right here, and we're really just looking for the vertex. So you just need to remember how you get the vertex. It's a formula that uses B, this number, and A, this number. Do any of you remember that formula? You got it, Presley? What is it? Negative B over 2A. Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our calculator for this one. All right, Jackson, keep it quiet, I'm recording. So we're going to go to our calculator for this one. We're going to do the opposite of B, so a negative 28, divided by 2 times negative 16, which is negative 32. So you're just going to go to your calculator. I think you guys have been rounding to the hundreds. So if you could do 28 divided by 32 for me. 0.825. Can I get a 0.8 what? 825. So 0.83? Yeah. 0.83, or we can just use the full 0.8. Nah, let's round it.
0.875.
Yeah, you use it exact?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do 0.825. Boom, 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 right? Then that's the answer right over here to how many seconds. So almost a full second for that thing to reach its maximum height. That's this coordinate, and that's how far over we need to go, because this would be time. So let's go see how we get the second question. How do we figure out how high it's going to get? What do I do with this 0.825, Jackson?
0.825. You
Yep.
put it back in.
You put it back in, and make sure you use your calculator. So we're going to put that in for the T. We're going to put it in for the T, and we're going to add 5. So you already did this one. That's okay. The distance learners didn't, and I need to record it. So you guys then can make me go faster. Just go tell me what you got for that.
17.25.
17. Can I get a background of 17.25? Feet. Yes, Champ, you got the same thing? All right. Then for this question, when will it hit the ground? Well, it hits the ground right here, and it's halfway right here. So if it's 0.825 seconds to get halfway, it's going to be another 0.825 seconds to go the rest of the way. So what do you just do with your 0.825? You add it to itself or double it, whatever you like better on your calculator. So what is 0.825 plus 0.825? 1.65 seconds before it splashes on the ground. You will have a word problem like this on your test tomorrow, only one. The only difference is it might not be a water balloon. And the negative 16 is always there, because I told you guys that's gravity, and that doesn't change. So unless you're tossing it on another planet, it's just those two numbers that are going to change, the B and the C. All right, the next thing you'll be asked to do is a whole bunch of solving. We're going to look at the odds. You have 3 ways to solve this chapter. Square roots, which is great when it works, but it doesn't always work. Factoring, which is great when it works, but it doesn't always work. The quadratic formula, which takes a long time, but it always works. So this one is the strongest, but the other 2 are faster. So when it says to solve by square roots, it means you want to eventually square root x squared. Go ahead and write it up there. Which means you need to get rid of everything in the way. So with number 13, I can't square root it yet because of that minus 13 there. So what are we going to do to both sides? Add 13, and when you do negative 20 plus 13, you get a negative 7.
Aren't you supposed to add the 20?
No, I'm adding the 13 to get, it's these, you're thinking for these 2 methods, we need to get it equal to 0. But for this method, we need to get x squared all by itself. And when we do negative 20 plus 13, we get a negative 7. Now I can square root it. But what does your calculator say that is? Error. What did your teacher say to write? No real solutions, exactly. But I am going to do one even here because I want to do a detail when you do have a solution. So again, we want to get just the x squared by itself or get it naked, and it's got 2 layers on it. The minus 75's got to be taken off. How do you get rid of a minus 75? Add it. So we'll get 3x squared equals a positive 75. That layer's gone. I still don't have just x squared. I've got the 3 in the way. How do I do multiplying by 3? So we divide by 3 either in a head or we get to use our calculator on this test. 75 divided by 3 is 25. Now that it's isolated, that's why they call this square roots. You just square root it, and it'll be x equals 5. Now, if you do that on your test, you're going to get it back, and it's going to say minus 1 right there. Plus or minus. Yeah, don't forget that your calculator just can't give you both because of the syntax, the way it's programmed. But, so we have to do plus or minus 5. It's a detail that won't make or break you. Once you're done solving by square roots, you're going to be asked to solve by factoring. So it's a key word. You need to factor these, but that's where Clyde said, don't we need to get it equal to 0? Yes, for factoring and quadratic formula. So with our number 15, it is equal to 0. So all we do is chapter 8's factoring. So let's see if you remember that. Boy, they don't give you much room to write on here. What times itself gives you the x squared? X. What times what gives you a 12? 2 and 6. I'm just going to write that down over here. 3 and 4, 12 and 1. How do you decide? Again, this is back to last chapter. How do you decide which one it is? The middle guy is the key, and there's a 1 there. Which pair of these numbers can you get a positive 1 out of?
3, 4.
Yes, but you can't leave them both positive or it's going to be a 7. You need it to be a positive 1. So you need to have 4 minus 3 basically, or a positive 4 and a negative 3. Be very careful because when I used to teach this, I'd get a good, like a fourth of the kids in every class would quit right here. And they'd lose minus 2, minus 2, minus 2, minus 2 because you didn't give me the answers, you just factored it like it was in chapter 8. You have to tell me what makes that 0.
Minus 4.
Negative 4 is one of the solutions. And then you have to tell me what makes that 0. Yeah, so know from here on down, your answers are numbers. They're solutions. So do you see why a lot of kids, they're done factoring, they're like, oh, I'm done. It's a different chapter. So now we're going to go to number 17. We're going to focus on the odds. You can finish the evens in your work time today. Number 17 is the most missed question on the test. And I know it because I wrote it and because I used to teach this a lot. I haven't for years, but I used to. And first thing is what Clyde said. You need to get it equal to 0 first. So how are you going to move a positive 5x over? You are going to subtract it. And this is where a lot of kids just quit. They're like, I can't unfoil that. That's not the kind of factoring it is. Presley. Yes. What can you pull out of both terms?
X.
Awesome, you guys. I hope distance learners, you're following as well as they are. If not, you should meet with me before your test tomorrow. Just send me a message. All right, sorry guys, I'm kind of talking to people here, 2 sets of people. But you're not done, Presley, because you have to tell me what makes these 0. What makes x 0? 0. Let's go do that. And what makes x minus 5 equal to 0?
Plus 5.
Positive 5, Jackson. Excellent. All right, number 19. If you don't know number 19, you're going to get all the rest wrong on that page. So I want you to stop, distance learners as well. Write down what you think the quadratic formula is. If you write it right, you're going to write it right tomorrow, and then you'll be good for the next 4. If you don't know it or have it memorized, it's going to cause a huge issue because you can't use your notes. So there's 2 formulas to memorize. The one Presley said for getting the vertex, negative b over 2a, and then the quadratic formula, which actually has both of these things in it. So I want you guys to write it down, and then you're going to see if you wrote it right. If you did, don't look at it again. You're fine. If you didn't remember it right, you need to memorize it by when? Tomorrow. So here it is. It's x equals negative b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared
minus 4ac over 2a.
Yes, they're saying it, distance learners, if you can't hear them. And then, although that's right, when we actually use it, just so our calculator does stuff correctly, we put parentheses around all those variables on the top up there like that. So now we're going to go use it for number 21. What's wrong with 21 before you even start? It's not equal to 0. It's a positive 16, so you're going to, excellent. So I'm going to go x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0, right? Then what do? Just for my distance learners. ABC. Yeah, you either think of them or you write them down. I like to write them down. And make sure you take the signs with them. So C is actually negative 16. Then as long as you have the correct recipe written down in number 19, you can't really cook it wrong because you're just putting the stuff in. So we're going to do the opposite of B. What's the opposite of B? Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of. We have to do B in parentheses squared. So 6 is going in the first set. Minus 4 parentheses parentheses. What goes in the first set of parentheses? Right here. Well, 1, yeah, 6 goes in the first set. What goes in the second set? 1. And in the third set? Negative 16. Amazing. All over 2 times 1. Now what do? I see you guys doing it. You're going to your calculators. If you can't, you guys, distance learners can't see them, but we've been working on this so much, they know to go to their calculator and enter that highlighted stuff under the root exactly as they see it. A left parenthesis, a 6, a right parenthesis, the squared, the minus. Make sure you use the subtraction symbol, which is above the plus on your calculator. Make sure for the negative 16, you use the smaller, the negative symbol, which is because your calculator will error if you don't. So there's a difference between, this one's a little bigger on your calculator, that one's a little smaller. What's under that root? I know from last hour, but I want to make sure you guys are calculating.
2.
Nope.
76?
Nope.
It's just
Under the whole root, it's not 76?
Nope.
That's what I got. You guys guessing?
Try it one more time.
Oh, 10.
Okay, hang on.
Now, under the whole root.
Wait, with the square root in there?
Nope. 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times
Minus
negative
4.
16.
Times 1
You took the root already.
times negative 10.
That's where you're 10.
100.
It's 100.
I got 76 again. What did you do? Let me see.
I don't think you squared.
I did. I squared the b. You did negative 10.
It's a negative 16.
Oh,
Yep, there we go. So under the root's 100. Do you know the square root of 100?
10.
10. So this is really negative 6 plus or minus 10 all over 2. But I want to stop because we're only doing the odds. What if I had said what's under that root and Leah had said negative 100?
it wouldn't.
It wouldn't work. What do you write on the answer blank? No
No
real
real
solutions. You actually like when that happens because you get to quit. So those are my favorite ones. I'm like, oh great, it's negative, I'm done. But this
So
one
if
was
it's under the
positive. So remember, we hop on our calculators and we go up 10. So go negative 6 plus 10 equals, or put it in parentheses, make sure you copy, and then you divide it by 2. And you should get a 2. You can do it all in one step as long as you either put parentheses or you hit enter. But the biggest mistake is if you go negative 6 plus 10 divided by 2. Because your calculator will only divide 10 by 2.
Why not?
Because of order of operations, the computer programmer who programmed your calculator, you need to do negative 6 plus 10, all of it, divided by 2. So if you don't tell your calculator that it's all of it, it's just going to do division. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It's going to divide those first, and then it's going to do the addition. So you need to tell your calculator that you're not just dividing 10 by 2. Either by locking and loading in parentheses, or easier, just hit the enter button before you hit divide. So on this one, you're going to go negative 6 minus 10, enter. So your calculator divides the whole thing by 2. And you get negative 16 over 2, which is a negative 8. Now I'm going to ask you a couple questions from yesterday. The parabola or the quadratic equation we just found the solutions to is this. Will it open up or down?
Up.
Up, right? Do you know, because we're going to go answer, before we come back here and do number 23, we're going to go answer 24. This exact question is on your test. Exactly. It says when you solve that quadratic equation, and we got a 2 and a negative 8. 2 and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we said the parabola opens up, right? The 2 and the negative 8, if we were to graph it on our graphing calculator, the parabola would look like this, and it would hit at 2 and at negative 8. That's what those solutions are. On the graph, it's where we hit the x-axis. You can write that on your test tomorrow. You can say where the parabola or it hits the x-axis, where your teacher might have told you to write x-intercepts. But kids forget that word intercept. So what's safe to write if you don't write x-intercept? Where it hits the x-axis. Yeah,
Would our teacher take both?
definitely. Yep. So let's go back up to the page. I want to get 23 done, and then I want to talk about the end. And then you can just wrap up the even ones we didn't do in class. So we're on 23. All right, what's wrong with number 23?
Not equal to 0.
Not equal to 0, so that's our first thing. We got to add the 25 over. This one's better. This one's good because it's already equal to 0. What's A when you don't see it? 1. B, take the sign with it. So make sure you write a negative 10 down. And C is a 25. Now you go to your recipe. It says take the opposite of B. What's the opposite of B?
Positive.
Positive 10. Thank you, Brittany. Plus or minus the square root of parentheses. Squared minus 4, parenthesis, parenthesis. Dump in your ingredients. What's going in the first set of parentheses?
Negative.
It's kind of like those cooking shows where they have everything and they just kind of start dumping it in. It's like, that looks easy. It is, if you have the right stuff to dump in. A negative 10, and then a 4, and then a 1, and then a 25. Just dump it in. All over 2 times A.
2
Where do you go now? To your calculator.
to inside square.
Inside the square root, exactly as you wrote it, parentheses and all, or your calculator will not square the negative 10. It'll just square 10 and put a negative in front of it. You're going to get something kind of weird.
0.
0. Just going to let them enter it. If you do the parentheses, it comes out as 0. Do you know the square root of 0?
0.
0. 0 times it's, or your calculator, if you're like, I don't know, your calculator will do it. So this one, you're going to get 10. I'm going to erase this. They really don't give you much room. 10 plus or minus 0 all over 2. Well, what happens when we do 10 plus 0?
5.
We get 10 over 2, which is 5. How about 10 minus 0?
10.
10 over 2, which is 5. There's only one answer. Now, let me show you what that means about the parabola. 5 is the x-intercept. So if I were to go graph it on my calculator, it opens up because of the positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to look like this. It's only going to hit once. And when you write no solution, it never hits when you end up graphing it. Kind of cool, right? Most of them, though, hit how many times? Twice. For most of these, you should be getting
So isn't
2
it one
answers.
solution?
Huh?
So isn't it one solution?
Just one solution. Yeah, the 5. But most of them, like the last one, we had a 2 and a negative 8. Like if you were to graph 10 parabolas, you'd probably have 2 solutions on 8 of them. Yes.
When we take the test, we have to say x equals on all the questions.
Do you?
I think.
Okay, then write x equals 5, and that would go over here on this answer blank. That was number 23, right? All right, we have 4 minutes though, and I want to talk about, we never talked about this last section. It was the easiest one. So these are the easiest questions on your test. You have to know the difference between linear, quadratic, and exponential. Let the word line help you. Which one of these looks like a line?
Linear.
25.
25. Then I would go actually to the quadratic. That's what this whole chapter's been about. And they're called parabolas when you graph them. Yeah. Go find, this is a line. This is what our whole chapter is about, quadratic equations and graphing them and finding their solutions. By the way, this one, if we had known what it was, would have no solution. And it doesn't hit. which means the loner out here is left to be which one?
Exponential.
Exponential. And for the distance learners, so I think some of these guys did it in class, when you're doing it with a table, you just need to go see, I'm gonna keep talking for the distance learners. You just go plot them. So you plot -2, 7, -1, 5, 0, 3. If it looks like it makes a line, you write linear. If it looks like it makes a parabola, you write quadratic. If it looks like it's exponential growth, you write exponential. All right, have a good one.
Trying to be my best friend from my already former. I was trying to be my best friend from my already former.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to